Every parent's worst nightmare is losing their child in the woods, but my nightmare didn't start when my son disappeared. It started the moment he came back, looking like my Aryan and speaking like my Aryan, but as he sat on the floor, tearing into a raw, bloody chicken with his bare teeth, I realized I had invited a demon into my home. It was supposed to be a simple weekend getaway to the mist-covered hills of the north, a way to escape the city noise, but the moment we stepped out of the car, the air felt wrong, heavy with the scent of rotting pine and something metallic, like old blood. My 6-year-old, Aryan, was always a bundle of energy, but the forest seemed to call to him in a way I couldn't understand, his eyes constantly drifting toward the thick, impenetrable treeline where the sunlight seemed to die before hitting the ground. While we were checking into the resort, distracted by a minor dispute over our reservation, the balcony door of our ground-floor suite creaked open with a sound like a dying gasp, and by the time I turned around, the room was empty and the curtains were fluttering like ghost wings in the cold mountain breeze. Security footage would later show a sight that haunts my dreams, a tiny, fragile figure walking with unnatural purpose straight into the black heart of the jungle, never once looking back, never once hesitating, as if he were a puppet being reeled in by an invisible master. We searched for hours, our flashlights cutting pathetic holes in the fog that had swallowed the world, calling his name until our throats were raw and bleeding, but the forest only answered with the mocking echo of our own terror. Deep in that forbidden greenery, where even the birds had stopped singing, stood a crumbling haveli, a relic of a forgotten era with walls made of stained stone and windows that looked like hollow, weeping eyes watching our misery unfold. Inside that tomb of a house, Aryan had followed a sound that no child should ever hear, the wet, rhythmic giggling of a dozen children coming from a basement that smelled of copper and ancient dust. He found a room lined with cracked, silver-backed mirrors, and in the center stood his twin, a boy made of shadow and malice who whispered, "Give me your skin, and I will let you dream forever." When we finally found him at 4 a.m., standing perfectly still at the edge of the treeline, we were too blinded by relief to notice the subtle wrongness, the way his shadow didn't quite match his movements, or how his eyes remained wide and unblinking in the harsh glare of our torches. We brought him home, thinking the trauma had just made him quiet, but the silence was actually a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. The first night back, the house became a freezer, the walls sweating a foul-smelling black liquid that Aryan claimed was just forest juice. Then came the kitchen incident, a moment of pure, unadulterated horror that shattered my soul. I woke up to a sound like wet leather being ripped apart and found him crouched in the dark, his jaw unhinged at an impossible angle, devouring a raw, dripping chicken carcass with a feral intensity that no human could possess. When he turned to look at me, his head rotated a full 180 degrees with a sickening series of cracks, and he smiled with too many teeth, whispering in a voice that sounded like grinding stones that the real Aryan was still screaming in the haveli's mirrors. Our dog began to howl at the empty air around him, his fur standing on end until his heart literally stopped from fright, and every plant I touched turned to ash within minutes of him entering the room. I found his drawings hidden behind the wallpaper, thousands of sketches of our family with our throats replaced by gaping mouths, and a tall, spindly figure standing behind us, wearing my son's face like a cheap plastic mask. Now, every time he calls me Mommy, I feel a cold blade of ice slide down my spine, because I know that under that soft skin, something ancient and starving is counting the seconds until it can stop pretending and show me what it really did to my boy in those dark, cursed woods. If your child ever wanders into the shadows, don't pray for their return, pray that the forest keeps them, because whatever walks back through your front door might just be wearing your child's smile to hide a hunger that can never be satisfied.